The top business stories live from the Sky News room. A warning this morning that millions of people in the UK are walking a financial tightrope. Donald Trump heads home from the Middle East with billions of dollars deals in the bag. We'll ask whether his tour was a success. Plus, why the number of billionaires in the UK is falling. That's according to the latest Sunday Times rich lists. Yeah, very good morning on this Friday Business Live with me, Darren McCaffrey. We're going to get onto those business stories in a second, but first we're going to go to Bicester and join our correspondent, Molly Malone, who is covering the tragic news this morning of two firefighters and a member of the public dying in a large fire at a former RAF base in Oxfordshire. And Molly, just talk us through how large this fire was and clearly the tragic news of those three deaths.
Well, it's difficult to get a sense. We are somewhat back from the scene at the moment, but we know that reports, emergency services were called yesterday evening to report of a major incident here in Bicester just after 6:30 yesterday evening. We know that 10 fire and rescue units were deployed, and sadly 3 people lost their lives. That includes 2 firefighters who were attending to the blaze and also 1 member of the public. We also know that 2 further firefighters are currently in hospital being treated for serious injuries. Now, the fire is considered to be under control, but there is still a heavy police presence here, and I don't know if you can make it out, but just behind me we can see a big firefighting unit and a hose, a long yellow hose, which stretches somewhat back behind those police officers behind me. There is still a heavy presence, emergency services here. Now, residents were told yesterday evening to stay indoors, though some have reported hearing pops and crackles as this fire unfolded yesterday evening. This is a residential area. There are houses just to my left. We are on a busy roundabout, but there's a care home down the road, houses round the corner. The site of the fire is a former RAF base, though it's now called a car company, a historic car and aviation centre. Causes of the fire not yet clear, though clearly they will be looking to work that out. We've heard the Prime Minister commend the bravery and the efforts of the firefighters, and many local MPs, including Annalise Dodds, paying their respects as well, wishing well those officers, those firefighters, that are still in hospital. So many questions yet to answer, but we do know that police and firefighters are still attending to the scene.
OK, Molly, appreciate that. Molly Malone there live for us, and Molly had the latest throughout the day here on Sky News. And it is a busy news day with events happening in Albania, in Turkey and in the House of Commons, as you can see. We'll keep you across those if there are any updates throughout the programme. But let's move on to some of today's business news, because millions of adults in the UK are walking a financial tightrope. That's according to the city regulator. The Financial Conduct Authority's latest Financial Lives survey found that around a quarter of adults had low financial resilience last year, meaning that they could easily find themselves in difficulty. And it's estimated that 1 in 10 adults has no cash savings at all, with a fifth holding less than £1,000 to draw on in an emergency. Let's speak to Sarah Pritchard from the Financial Conduct Authority, who joins us this morning. And Sarah, these are pretty worrying stats.
Good morning. As you say, we're here for the results of our Financial Life survey, which gives a really comprehensive picture of people's financial circumstances. Now, there are some bright points. Despite the recent challenging times, we see more people banking, having access to bank accounts than ever. The number of unbanked people has reduced below 1 million for the first time. More people are saving for their pension, and more people can access services digitally. The digital exclusion figure down to 2% from 14% when we first started tracking in 2017. But as you say, times are hard. 1 in 4 adults have low financial resilience, 1 in 10 no cash savings, and a further 1 in 5 have less than £1,000 that they could draw on in an emergency if they needed to do so. And that's why here at the FCA, we've made helping consumers navigate their financial lives a key part of our strategy and work plan over the next 5 years.
And the numbers are quite extraordinary in many regards. I mean, we're talking about a lot of people here. 2.8 million have got persistent credit card debt. Nearly 12 million British people feel overwhelmed or stressed when dealing with financial numbers. Can you give us some historical context? Is this a problem? I mean, it's clearly always existed, but is it getting worse? Is it getting a little bit better? Just give us a sense of a context of where these numbers are in relation to what you've seen in the past.
So the results that we published today, based upon really detailed survey that we carried out between mainly May and June last year, 18,000 adults. So it gives us a really comprehensive picture. Now, that 1 in 4 figure who are struggling, that 1 in 10 figure with people with no cash savings, that's been broadly the same compared to the last time that we did the survey, which is still a problem, but I think it's encouraging given that during that period, we've really seen cost of living challenges, really significant increases in inflation. We really use this data to inform our work and also to track progress. So it is really important, as you say, to track year on year. I do have some really clear messages for people coming out of our survey. We see really clearly that people are not confident to seek help from their financial services provider. They're more likely to reach out to their mortgage provider than if they've got problems in high cost credit. And we see from the data that people think that accessing free and impartial debt advice will impact your credit file. It won't. So we really want to dispel some of those myths. There's plenty of help and guidance out there. Have a look on some of the government-backed websites, such as Money Helper, that can signpost you to your local free debt advice.
Sarah, and said that many people will look at this and they'll look at, and this is something that's been brought up time and time again, about the lack of just basic financial teachings in schools, that lots of people in this country grow up without understanding the basics of the simple things about how to manage money. It's been a persistent problem and there's no sign of it changing. Is it time that you guys, the government, education authorities really looked at kind of having proper financial education from a pretty early age?
Well, as you say, some of those figures, 1 in 5 people not feeling confident around numeracy, those figures are concerning. We are playing our part as the regulator. We're really looking to make sure that people have access to the help and guidance and support that they need to make informed decisions. That's the very cornerstone of our strategy that we've recently announced. We want people to be able to access that help and advice and guidance to make informed decisions about what to do with their finances. At the other end of the scale, we also see through the survey that people who hold over £10,000 in investable assets, 61% of those people are holding 3/4 or more in cash. So that also shows us at the other end, people don't have the confidence to invest or perhaps think for the long term. And my message is, whether you're struggling to make ends meet or you have some money that you're keeping in cash, do take some guidance, do have a look at the help and support that's available to you so that you can make informed decisions for the future if you're thinking long term, but also if you're struggling in the short term, please do speak to your financial services provider.
OK, Sarah, really appreciate your time this morning from the FCA, Sarah Pritchard there. Just to say that these are live pictures from Istanbul. We know, of course, that Ukrainian and Russian officials have holding talks in the Turkish capital, of course, trying to see if there's any sense of a deal when it comes to the war in Ukraine. Let's just have a listen in to what the Turkish Foreign Minister is saying in Istanbul this morning.
Have been working hard on this to bring an end to this war, and Ukrainian President's visit to Ankara yesterday has actually brought more energy into peace negotiations, and we are very happy to have both parties hosting both parties in Istanbul. And this is also very important to say that how important to have this war coming to an end. For us to progress on the path of peace, we have to use each and every opportunity and everyday compass there are more loss of life and more atrocities, and that doesn't help anybody. So it is very important to have a truce and also have a permanent ceasefire and for both parties. Now we have an opportunity that we need to make use. From now on, it is very important what kind of choice we make, what steps we take, and how we determine which steps to take. So it is also important for leaders to get together and decide what they are going to do. So we have to have a positive structure, and I'd like to underline one thing. Turkey is always with you to build the peace, and we are prepared to provide you with all we can to make further progress in these peace negotiations. And I would like to welcome you all, and I wish this meeting have a successful end for peace for both countries concerned.
There we go. That was the Turkish foreign minister speaking at those Ukraine-Russia talks in Istanbul, seeming quite bullish, actually, saying that he's happy to see will on both sides, and saying that there was now a new window of opportunity for peace. Of course, this is the first time that there have been direct talks between Ukraine and Russia since that war began. But as I said, the Turkish foreign minister saying that he viewed these talks this morning as a new window of opportunity for peace. And we'll keep across, of course, those talks in Istanbul and any developments throughout the programme and the day here on Sky News. Let's kind of stay in the region now, but talk about Donald Trump, because he is heading home from his tour of the Gulf states. The trip wasn't the standard Middle East tour for an American president, with the focus on trade deals rather than on peace. President Trump is returning to Washington with what he says is $2 trillion worth of deals, including orders for dozens of new Boeing planes.
It's just my opinion, but Boeing makes the best plane. And they've had some headaches over the last few years, but they make the best plane, and you see what's happening. And it's not the only case, but a lot of people are ordering the Boeing jets, and they're gearing up. And I think it's going to be one of the great stories. And the General Electric engine is phenomenal. The big body General Electric engine is phenomenal.
Well, let's bring in Daniela Haythorne, Senior Market Analyst at Capital.com. Danielle, always a pleasure. Very good morning to you. I mean, he does seem to have done quite well this week when it comes to these trade deals. Trillions of dollars if it comes true.
Yeah. Good morning, Dan. I mean, the reports coming from there are very positive, and we're seeing that in the market, specifically in the US stock market. Now, I think this in a way is Trump's kind of attempt at showing that he is able to be amicable and to strike deals with those partners that he's interested. So in a way, it's kind of a show of power and show of that openness and willingness to strike deals that are in favor specifically of the US and US companies, and the likes of Boeing have seen, very good performance this week on the back of that. But it's also been a picture about AI-driven technology, and we've seen that in the likes of NVIDIA as well, up about 15% this week. And it's all about Trump wanting to strike deals with the Middle East to enhance and to export AI-driven technology that's manufactured in the US, kind of to create that competition with China.
And in many regards, we've talked a lot in the last 150 days or so about kind of business feeling kind of quite strained in that relationship with Trump. Many looked at the turmoil with the tariffs, many disagreed with the tariffs themselves. Do you think this week has turned a corner? I mean, it was quite extraordinary, particularly in Riyadh, the number of US business leaders there.
Yeah, I think definitely. I think there's a lot of optimism in the market. And I think this isn't something that's new from this week. We've been seeing over the last few weeks how Trump has been more open to create these deals with other countries. And even though the EU now seems like the biggest enemy, given what he said a few weeks ago, he is getting closer to striking these deals with a lot of big countries that are important partners in trade relationships with the US. So markets are definitely positive. The stock market has been holding up pretty well. The tech sector is definitely outperforming, though, given these talks in the Middle East.
Okay, Daniel, just going to pause there for 1 second because we're just going to show viewers pictures from the Albanian capital, Tirana. It looks indeed like the leaders are gathering for the traditional family photo. This is at a European summit. There's Ursula von der Leyen, for example, the EU Commission President, the Prime Minister of Albania too. We know Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, is there, as is President Zelensky. There we are. There is indeed the UK Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer. And as I say, they are meeting at that one-day summit in Albania. In fact, there is President Erdogan of Turkey, who is also attending that summit, President Macron too. As we watch these pictures, let's carry on talking about the markets if we can and the global economy, Daniela. Can we talk about Japan? Because it's struggling somewhat at the moment with lower than expected growth.
Yeah, I think that's definitely been a shock to the market to some extent with the data being released overnight. We have seen negative growth in Japan, and that kind of, again, brings into question the impact that some of these tariffs are going to have on growth and how international relations and trade relations are going to shape the world and the global economy. So we've definitely seen some concern there from the Japanese economy. He was actually been a little bit of a powerhouse in the last few months as inflation specifically was coming down in most of the European countries and also the US alongside growth. Japan was standing out as an outlier. We've kind of seen that data throw a spanner in the mix, and that also comes at a time where this week we've also seen data from the UK and from the Eurozone actually holding up pretty well.
Okay, Daniela, for the moment, really appreciate your time this morning from capital.com there on the global economy. As I say, it's a busy news morning. We've been taking, obviously, the view from Istanbul, where those talks between Russia and Ukraine are underway. But meanwhile, this is the live scene in Albania, where more than 40 leaders from across Europe are gathering for talks expected to focus on intensifying sanctions on Russia, with the NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, who's also there, saying that it was the #1 issue, Ukraine, on the agenda for this summit. We will keep across those events in Albania, in Turkey too, and we'll also have on Business Live the car industry, which is going through tough times. We'll be speaking to the boss of a major European car maker in just a couple of minutes. Stay tuned.
show of military might and menace. Why should the West trust you?
Frankly, I don't care whether the West trusts us or not.
Sky News. Get the full story first.
Have a quick word for Sky News. Is the West right? Are you fueling Russia's war machine? American journalist Evan Gershkovich is on trial here, but was first on display.
I'm Ivor Bennett, Sky's Moscow correspondent.
$1,500 movies? I don't want this flight to end.
Fly Emirates, fly better.
Very welcome back to Business Live. Now, these are clearly tough times for motor manufacturers, with Donald Trump's tariffs sending shockwaves through the industry. Plus, there is that growing competition from China alongside the midst of the challenge of the transition to electric vehicles. Well, delighted to say, joining now is Denis Levaux, who is the chief executive of Dacia, the Romanian car manufacturer, who is next to some of those very cars. Very good morning to you. I suppose my first question is actually on electric vehicles. It is something that all car manufacturers are getting involved in, but it is a market that is very competitive and one in which consumers haven't quite embraced it as maybe some would have thought. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's true. Hello, everyone. Hello, Darren. The electric market is very, very competitive, and the whole industry is now realizing that what's important is to offer affordable electric mobility. And this is what we've been doing at Dacia for a few years now. Launched last year in the UK is the Spring, less than £15,000. This is a real Dacia because we made a small car, short car with a small battery. Hence, we can be super competitive on the price. And this car actually is the #1 car on the small segment car of electric vehicles here in the UK and as well as in Europe. So at Dacia, we really work on the affordable mobility. This is what we're trying to concentrate on.
In saying that, I mean, I'm reading here that, Dacia, Hyundai and Citroën have been beaten in the UK by BYD, of course, from China recently in terms of sales. I mean, China is a really competitive force in that market here in the UK, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is, and we're here to fight against. We've been announcing that another electric car is just about to come next year. This is going to be a bigger car built in Europe, and that will be below £18,000. So we know how to engineer the car, we know how to master the technology of the batteries to make them cheap, and then we're going to be in the battle for sure.
OK, let's talk about the other big story, of course, this year so far when it comes to motor manufacturing, and that is tariffs. What impacts have they had and the uncertainty around them in terms of your business?
Well, as far as Dacia is concerned, I would say a bit less, because we are mostly a European car maker selling around Europe up to North Africa, and we are building our cars in Europe. So we are, in a way, and this is our luck, less affected by the tariffs, which permits, by the way, to continue being aggressive on our price positioning on the market, which we do.
But I suppose in many regards, the problem with the tariffs, even if they're not directly affecting us, they are further squeezing the European market in terms of Europe's motor manufacturing industry is under a lot of pressure, isn't it, as export markets around the world become more difficult?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. One thing that we see at Dacia is that with the tariffs, but before that, with the inflation, with the cost of energy, with the regulations in Europe, the price of the car is getting crazy in a way, right? Getting more and more expensive. And what we do at Dacia is that we know with the right content on our car, with leveraging the assets developed inside the group with the Renault brand to propose cars which are very cost effective. And you're actually right, we realize that more and more people have to make a choice because the cars are getting too expensive. On my right-hand side is the Bicester that we are launching right now. It's a full-size SUV car starting £25,000, which is like £10,000 below competition of today. So this is, in a way, producing in Europe and knowing how to do them is an advantage for us.
In saying that, what about relations between the EU and Britain? As you say, you know, you're a European car manufacturer. There's going to be a big political summit very soon involving our Prime Minister and European leaders. Do you think, or would you like to see, a better trading relationship between the European Union and Britain?
Yes, of course, right? Because we make cars for everyone. We make right-hand drive cars, and we're so happy to sell them in England. I think that, of course, we call for a better cooperation between the UK and Europe, obviously.
OK. We really appreciate your time this morning. That is Denis Levaux, who is the Chief Executive of Dacia. Thank you very much indeed for joining us here on Sky News. We're just going to take you back to Tirana, the Albanian capital, where, as you can see, European leaders have been gathering today for a one-day summit, primarily focusing on Ukraine. President Zelensky is there. Mark Rutte also, the NATO Secretary-General. I have to say, leaders appear to be signing the symbol of this summit. There you go, that is the Albanian leader there. And in essence, as I say, they are talking about the situation in Ukraine, about whether there should be further sanctions against Russia. This is alongside, of course, those direct talks that are now underway in Istanbul involving Ukrainian and Russian representatives. The first time that has happened since the widespread invasion of Ukraine 3 years ago. We'll keep you across all these big major international events throughout the day here on Sky News. I will see you at 4:30 this afternoon for Business Live. Join me then if you can. Bye-bye.